Are we recording? Oh, we are recording. Fantastic. Welcome back, welcome back to the Health Revival Show. Today we are doing a part two with the one and only Dane Johnson from Crohn's Colitis Lifestyle. He reached back out to me on Instagram a few weeks ago. We were just catching up on life, and I was like, come back on the podcast. We loved our first conversation. You've got a great mission, and excited to dive in again today and just share with the audience things that are on our hearts and things we're seeing in clinical practice. So, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Liz, for having me. And I just want to dedicate this to anyone who's sick and feeling like they can't get healthy. We both know how hard it is, and healing is possible. It's tough, it's not linear, but you can do it. And I appreciate you having me today.
Yeah. So, what we were talking about just kind of offline is what we're seeing in practice and really helping individuals understand what's going on. Maybe they have gone to the doctor and been told everything is normal. You're seeing specialists, everything is normal. You're having scopes, right? Colonoscopies or endoscopies, and everything is apparently normal, yet you do not feel very well. So, let's dive into what some of those underlying things are that we commonly see in practice as root cause contributors, as I like to call them, because we know the immune system is ultimately the dictator of everything here, but some of those underlying infections and how that contributes to even what you see specifically with Crohn's and colitis.
Yeah, great question. And when people come onto our doorstep, they're already diagnosed with a quote unquote incurable disease, chronic inflammation. So the colonoscopy looks bad, the endoscopy looks bad, the calprotectin, the stool test, the blood work looks bad, high CRP, sed all these things. But, one thing that we want to know about colonoscopies and everyone to be aware of, a colonoscopy is predominantly a visual assessment of what's happening in your intestines. So let's say 50 to 60% of the small intestine, they cannot see the entire small intestine through an endoscopy. And then your colon, which is about 6 to 8 feet long, your large intestine, where they can visually see. If you aren't having an inflammatory response to bacteria overgrowth, to biofilms, to parasites, to candida, it's going to look normal, right? You can have candida, you can have blastocystis hominis, and they're going, looks normal. Let that epiphany sit in real quick that this is a visual assessment. If your immune system, if your T cells, dendritic cells, you're not getting a TNF alpha response, IL-6 cytokine reaction, you're not going to see the inflammation associated with the pathogen. Only a percentage of us are actually getting the inflammatory response from the pathogen. So a percentage of us are going to get IBD, a percentage of us are going to get IBS, where there is no visual inflammation. That's one of the biggest differences between IBS and IBD, is seeing the inflammation or not seeing the inflammation, even at a microscopic level. And then there's some of us who don't really have a lot of symptoms at all, but we also have the colonic dysbiosis. We also have the small intestine fungal overgrowth. So I think the first thing we have to understand is let's get empowered as a community to understand how to protect ourselves better, find deeper root issues, despite if your body just happenstance to have an inflammatory response or happenstance to get IBS-D or IBS-C, constipation or diarrhea, or you feel quote unquote normal, but you go, you know what? I need to do something for my longevity because this is going to sneak up on me and hit me when I turn 40 or 50.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive straight in then in terms of when we are not seeing obviously in the cases you talked about, you will see inflammation, you will see calprotectin high, you see these markers that, you know, indicate this level of inflammation going on in the body. But in these other cases where we call it kind of like flying under the radar in terms of it's slowly wearing down your immune system, these levels of infections and these things that we really only can test for in a lot of ways via stool. Or, yes, you can pick up on trends in blood work, but sometimes you don't always catch it. Testing the immune system is extremely challenging. And so, what do you see in terms of symptoms when it comes to some of these well known and popular or common pathogens that we're finding in individuals? And then, what type of testing do you find the most effective for these cases?
Yeah, and there's a large amount of practitioners out there who don't even go heavy at testing because it's not a perfect system. They focus a lot on muscle testing, frequencies. You can do Rife frequency, scalar energy to diagnose. So there's one part of the issue that's actually getting a diagnosis and saying, "Yep, that's it." Now the five pathogens we tend to look for are parasites, candida, candidiasis, or candida overgrowth. We look for dysbiotic bacteria or SIBO, so some sort of imbalance with bacteria, and there are many different types of bacteria. Then we look for viruses. Most commonly we see that are implicated in these issues is going to be Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, or HSV1. HSV2 can have a bigger reaction, Coxsackie virus, echovirus, varicella virus. And then last is going to be mold mycotoxins causing more of a chronic inflammatory response syndrome, a SIRS response. And so we're looking around at different tests and different ideas around that. So I believe that the symptoms need to be the number one thing you look at when diagnosing these, because I think both you and I agree that if we see someone who's got rashes, eczema, headaches, chronic bloating, chronic constipation, they can't gain weight, and they got a normal colonoscopy and their quantitative PCR stool test doesn't show much, we're going, nope. It's more, it's hidden, and we need to go on symptoms, not just on labs, because we know labs are not perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I would 100% agree. And we know that obviously mold mycotoxin and things like pathogens, bacteria overgrowths, and parasites, they can have crossover in terms of symptoms. But what would you say are maybe the differentiating symptoms when it comes to this looks much more like a mold mycotoxin case, this looks much more like a parasitic case or, a SIBO case?
You know, that's a very hard question to answer when someone goes, hey, I have this symptom. What could it be? Let's take diarrhea. Could be any of them. Let's take pain in the stomach. Could be any of them. Let's take skin reactions. Dominantly bacteria, candida, some sort of fungus, but also could be reacted with other issues. And a lot of us, once your ecosystem has one type of issue, like one kind of pathogen, it can create space for another. I rarely find one problem. So we could sit here and say that certain symptoms like autoimmune, I commonly see fistulas and fissures being connected with parasites. Now, I can't prove it, but from, clinical practice or looking under, thousands of people with IBD, I'm going, we continuously see issues around parasitic infection, especially when we treat it. Because parasites is a perfect example of what we're talking about, that we almost never find them, but we almost feel like we always need to treat them, right? Mimosa pudica and all these other black walnut and all these different anti-parasitic properties. And then we verify that because we find parasites in the stool, right? We find liver flukes, or we find long worms or biofilms that we believe are connected, mucoid plaque that we go, oh, maybe it wasn't parasites, maybe it was the mucoid plaque. So at one point, we have to have this deep understanding of what we think is going on, take our time on acting on it. But the best strategy I could say that we do is start with what we know is low risk and high reward. The number one thing that can help, if it's a virus or it's a parasite or if it's a candida, is just starting to retake the microbiome. So if you retake the microbiome by changing food, by working on beneficial bacteria, working on taking growth mediums with your bifidobacterium or bifidobacterium, your lactobacillus acidophilus, if you can start to retake that territory, number one, that type of beneficial bacteria can help control the pro-inflammatory cytokine reaction from the SIRS, from the parasites, not working perfectly, but helping to mitigate the body's response. I mean, that's why a lot of us were okay at 16 years old, and then we're terribly sick at 25. Why? Was it a vaccine? Did you have to go on triple round antibiotics for something? Did you get moved to the United States and start drinking all this, chlorinated bleached municipal water and all these microplastics and fast food? How many times have you guys seen someone who was totally fine living in another country and they come to America and then all of a sudden they've got severe GI issues and they're like, I was fine in my country, but I'm terrible here.
Yeah, or vice versa. You go there and you're like, man, I wake up with a flat belly every day. Nothing bothers me. I feel so good. I'm eating all the gluten and pasta and gelato.
Yes, what is going on? So we know it's not just genetic. We know it's more of our culture. We know it's our environment. So when you look at this situation, one of the first things I want to give everyone out there, it's like, well, what could I do? Because we can sit here and debate and argue and have all these questions. Is it the virus? Is it the parasite? Yes, but that is question 3 or 4 or 5. Let's start by just working on your natural biomechanics. So with the microbiome, can I start to enhance it with single strain probiotics? A lot of people who are really sick, especially with IBD, I'm not putting them on a multi-strain probiotic to start. So I can get the growth medium in there. If I can feed it with prebiotic, usually soluble fibers is going to be easier on the gut if you're going to have any type of fiber, like acacia fiber, wild blueberry, a little bit of banana. It needs to be soft, squishy, no seeds. That usually means it's predominantly a prebiotic soluble fiber, not an insoluble fiber. If I can start to feed the good cultures in the microbiome, now I can go to step 3 or 4 with a parasite cleanse, with going after mold, going after detox to support liver, stagnant bile, all these other issues with more confidence. Because if you're starting to go after these things with high inflammation, with tons of stress, and you can't work and you don't have energy and you can't go to the bathroom, you're rolling the dice in a big way. Because if you do advanced protocols without the foundations, you might have just dropped a grenade. And we don't know that, right? We don't know that as the practitioner coach in there and saying, let's roll the dice. Don't land on 7, right? We're rolling the dice if we don't set the foundation. So my whole thinking on it is, let's continue to unravel that as we go, but let's do low risk, high reward, because there's not usually one clear symptom that's going to mean one clear pathogen. And I rarely ever find one pathogen. It's almost always pathogens. If you have parasites, you most likely have dysbiosis, which means your bacterial load's off. If you have viral load, we commonly see a underlying mold issue connected. Why is it that viral burden continues to replicate and come out every time you're stressed? A lot of us listening, we have Epstein-Barr virus. Oh, I get stressed. I have to stay on lysine. I have to stay on monolaurin, or it comes back. Why? Why can't the immune system be strong enough to take care of it? What's going on with your NK cells? So that's where, if we can take the burden off the top, that's where food and vitamin D and drainage pathway support, and then resetting the microbiome, win the microbiome. I was dealing with a woman with severe POTS. She'd been sick for 25 years. I mean, one of the worst cases you'd ever seen. She can't get out of bed. She can't walk anywhere. Extremely talented, she's been done very well in life. But her heart will race, massive heat issues no matter what. And I'm looking at this going, I'm not a POTS specialist, but I'm a gut specialist. I can help with the microbiome. We start working on her microbiome. She doesn't need the heart medication anymore. She's out getting on a treadmill for the first time in 20 years. She's not getting severe headaches at night. Gone. Why? Because the microbiota and the connection to the nervous system is a lot more than we understand and know. The second brain, the more you fix that microbiome and take back the territory and put in inflammatory, regulating, beneficial bacteria, the more it can have a cascade of effects for whatever else your body's responding to. Then when we go after biofilms, then when we go after parasites, then when we go after deeper drainage detox pathways, the foundation is stronger, so you have low risk of having an extreme Herxheimer reaction to those protocols. So I want to know about those 5 pathogens, but we all agree right now that if I run a gut zoomer or an organic acid test, I do a blood panel, and maybe I do some very specific viral load panel or a very specific parasite class, even if it comes back negative, we're going, maybe it's right.
I mean, I don't know how you guys function in your practice, but for me, even from the get-go, when I'm doing an intake, I was taught, and I love this, and we're actually getting ready to start a mentorship, and we're going to start with this as well, is like, before you ever get into looking at the labs, think about the systems that are involved and impacted by this, your symptoms, right? What are those telling you about the systems? Because everything is a systems-based approach. If you just go in and attack a parasite, well, which parasite, first of all, but like, let's just say, somebody messaged me the other day about their 6-year-old and she's like, should I use a parakit? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, come on. Let's go back to the drawing board and think about, how is this showing up in terms of symptoms? What systems are all being impacted? And then one of the things I want to circle back to what you were saying, but I'm going to say in a different way, is I'm going to strengthen the defenses and open my drainage pathways before I come in with any eradication or killers. Because I see a lot of people that have come into our practice, at least, that have done so much killing and eradication, and they're not supporting strengthening their defenses. And the way that you're saying that is, I'm taking single strain probiotics that are going to help build my good gut army. Maybe I'm taking some immunoglobulins to help support the gut lining and to gently bind. Maybe I am taking some liver, gallbladder, bile support, right? Or, stomach acid support, or other things that are going to help me in the areas that I'm weak, so I can strengthen and get better results when I go in to kill. Because I think so many people are just continuing to beat down because they see like a parasite heavy metal detox cleanse for 10 days on social media that cost them $400, and that's going to cure all, right? In which we know that it's not, and it can set things into a a bigger cascade. Like we have a few clients in our practice to where the moment those eradication agents went in, the immune system got pissed, and it's been battleground since then to
Yeah.
try to get it to calm back down.
We've seen that so many times. We're very cautious. I would say we can usually get about 60% symptom relief, and that's give or take, depending on the case, without using any killers. Because when you work, just like you said, binders, drainage, and going after retaking the biomechanics, the digestion, the gut lining, the microbiome, that can all calm down the nervous system. And as inflammation drops, as the nervous system drops, as the immune system calms down, the body a lot of times will start getting rid of that itself. Like with Crohn's or colitis, a person will have 6 bowel movements in the morning with little blood and mucus over and over again. Why? There's so much inflammation. The colon is so swollen, it can't release the toxins. If you can just get it to release the toxic load, it might just start calming down there without having to go on a parasite cleanse. So you really want to start with the foundations. Start with what you can do. Play defense first, and you might be very surprised how you go. That woman with POTS, she'd worked with tons of practitioners, spent 6 figures. And the biggest thing, she was so cautious on what she could do. I only added 6, 7 things in. It wasn't about adding 100 things. It was finding the 5 or 6 that really work. And it's like I always tell people, it's like Indiana Jones. You know when he's going through the caves and like, don't step on that one, you're going to get a dart to the neck? It's like a great practitioner has to look, okay, there's 15 or 20 places to step in front of me. There's danger everywhere, especially with advanced cases. And you just need to learn how to step on 3 or 4 stones to get past this, not 20. And I think we're giving too much. I don't think we're having a smart enough and a really consistent integral conversation about what they've experienced, what's happened with them, and where they can start low and slow, and building confidence around that. Because I think a lot of us, we get to a point where we feel like, well, I need 20 things to get the result because we haven't had enough experience in our arsenal to say, this, I think right here, this thing right here, I think is going to help us with this thing in a big way. And that's why I started using single strain probiotics. But I also found the same company, like I love Natron, and I found that if I use their capsule, it doesn't work as good. It's the same product. It's the same facility. And it got me into this epiphany around growth medians. Okay. And it's the same thing with fermented foods. Why is it some people are saying they're going to complete remission with homemade raw kefir or homemade yogurts? Now, I always use kefir or yogurt over a raw milk. I don't really play with the milks. I play with all the fermented foods. Now, you got to be careful, of course, with mast cell, histamine, how you're doing, SIBO is all going to mess with that. But I know when to use it like Indiana Jones. It's like, oh, let's pull the whip out. Nope, this ain't the time for the whip. Put it back on the belt. We're going to go with this tool. And that's what it is. It's discerning about when to use what. So now I know, okay, these are the 5 pathogens I want to be looking for. And these are the common toxins I want to be looking for. The 5 pathogens, again, is virus, mold, candida, parasite, and bacteria. And all of them have an arsenal of options, like Liz said, like which parasite could it be? Is it liver flukes, bacteria? Is it Pseudomonas? Is it C. diff? Is it H. pylori? Is it Campylobacter? There's levels to this. Is it candidiasis in the gut? Is it systemic? Is that why you're getting toenail fungus? Is that getting a white tongue? With mycotoxins, there are many different types of mold. Is it black mold, Stachybotrys? Is it, different types of molds, gliotoxin, predominantly in the gut? How do you get rid of that? Do we need cholestyramine? Do we need other types of situations to help work that out? So you've got to have an arsenal of stuff and then customize it to where you're at. And then when you're trying to get a great result, learn how to do something that's very defensive, low risk, high reward. Start slow, come up with a game plan with you and your team and you and your coach to say, we think this is going to work, and then scale it. Another thing I think people get wrong is they go, okay, we're going to start probiotics, we do drainage support, I'm going to do a binder, and then I'm going to start on the antipathogens. I go, well, not necessarily. Because if that works, I'll just scale it. If you got 30% symptom relief with those probiotics and I double them to twice a day and double the increase, can I get you to 50? Like, how much can you squeeze out of this lemon with no new variables? Because variables always complicate things. And listening right now, that the more variables, the more stressed you get. Oh, I just talked to my coach, and I see a lot of practitioners do this. I just talked to them. They added 5 new things in. I'm adding in the castor oil pack. Then I'm adding in Tudka with kale support. Then I'm going to add in this coffee enema. And then I'm going to be tapping on my head, and then I have to go do rebounder for 15 minutes every day. And you got 6 new variables. And then in your gut, you're going, this might be too much. But I don't want to tell them that because they're the specialist. And then you don't want to slow things down. You're like, no, I really want to heal. And if I trust them and if this is really going to work, I need to Like, I just need to do what they say, and they know what variables. And then when it doesn't work, you lose faith in your body, you lose faith in the practitioner, and then you guys have to rebuild that relationship. So I'm always asking, like, one of the things that you want to do, and I know you guys do this too, is like, just really, really listen. If a client tells me that they are scared of something, I'm going to back off and see if I can find another route. Like, I got this one woman, she's 71. She didn't want me to age her. 71 years old, and she's been sick for 10 years straight. And she was working with one of my coaches, and we weren't getting results. You guys know this. Like, we got to be honest. Like, we help people for a living, and we have testimonies that are unbelievable. But every new case is a new problem and a new puzzle. And it's hard, and you got to work hard. What we do is hard, but we're great at it. And so I came and I started looking at her case, and I just realized what we were saying. She cannot handle variables. She had like a 2-week herx on a PEMF mat.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Right? Like a PEMF. It's like, what? And you know what calmed it down? She went on walks, grounding, and hugged trees. It's like the only thing that calmed it down for her. And she's been on 4 antivirals chronically for years because she thinks it's all Epstein-Barr, right? Now, she's smart. I checked her Ellie Spot technology. You guys were asking me about labs. So I said, okay, let's go check. I like using Dr. Armin. His viral load, I found it's the best. The IgG, IgM, whatever. I'll do it under insurance for free. But at some point, I want to use ELISpet technology, which is much more sensitive than what the doctors are checking. And I also, with certain viruses, I want to check the IgA, which is local mucosal reaction, because I'm a gut specialist. So I want to see how these viruses are affecting the gut. And then, what antiviral am I using as an antibiofilm as well? Do people herx on this? Do I do single ingredient dropper? Does it have ethanol? I got to consider all these things. So this is what it is. Like, when you're working with someone, you want someone who's like Batman. And they got to listen to you, and you got to understand your intuition is one of the guiding forces on how I make decisions. Because that's how I think all of us even started to heal ourselves. It's like, we had to get sharp because we didn't have what we are now giving to people. We didn't have it. So we had to do what? Sharpen our intuition. I feel right? You're confident. You're like, nope, that's going to hurt me. Nope, that's not doing anything. Nope, that's a waste of time. Nope, I'm taking too many supplements. I need to narrow it in, give it 2 weeks, and then pivot.
Yeah. I think that, especially with how much information is out there right now, and everyone's an expert, and like, there are people doing so much more harm than good on social media in terms of not only fear mongering and gaslighting and all of these things, but like, people think, I think, because of all of the free information out there, that they can just DIY their health and they can figure it out on their own. And I'm going to take this supplement because this person told me about this symptom that sounds right to me. And then I'm going to put this one in. And we have people, and I'm sure you do too, come to you on 40 different supplements. And it's like, how do you even know if any of this is working or making it worse? Did you layer them in one at a time? Have you tried removing them? Like, what have you done to listen to your body and be able to evaluate if this is actually working for you or not? And so, in the same breath, we're also seeing a lot of people that are coming to us that cannot tolerate anything. That as soon as a supplement goes in, they're having a Herx reaction, they're having a response, they're having a histamine response. And so, we're seeing a lot more histamine, mast cell, POTS type cases. I would be curious, in those scenarios, are you also starting with, potentially a single strain probiotic? Are you going at it more from a lifestyle aspect, maybe electrolyte manipulation? Like, what are you finding in these really sensitive
Yeah,
cases
great
is that
question.
step?
Unbelievable, great question. And we're seeing a lot more of that too. Really tough people, like more and more, who can't take their body is freaking out. And I think it could be COVID. It could be the body's overwhelmed with whatever's in some of these vaccines. I think it could be the 5G. I think it could be, it's just genetic SNPs, starting to express themselves in certain ways. People with HLA-DQ, MTHFR, COMT. It's all starting to like build up in the body, and it's getting worse, right? And so that's a really great question. That's an advanced strategy. And that's the ultimate Indiana Jones you just asked. Like, there's now 60 different sets, like places, and you got one place you're going to get it right, or you're going to get a dart in the neck. That's my best metaphor. You really don't want to add a lot of things. And this is where I really focus on single ingredient products. That's why I said single ingredient probiotics, because they can't take fermented foods. They can't take a lot. Some of them can't even take curcumin. I'm like, you're rehearsing on 400 milligrams of curcumin? Not even bioavailable curcumin, like C3 curcuminoids, like just straight to the gut, layered in the colon, like or layered in there, just staying in there, not even bioavailable. So This is where we have to start looking at lifestyle changes that can really help. And where I want to do is I want to just find a foundation of success. So the more advanced you are, and I think a lot of the advanced people I've seen have really actually been excited about this and felt like it's enough. Because you and I as practitioners might feel like, man, did I really do enough in that session? Did I give them enough? Because we have to discern, like, we don't want too many variables, but then we don't want to just tell them to do too little things and they walk out like, I could have done that. Like, that's nothing. So I'm always asking, is this enough? Do you feel confident? Do you feel safe with this? And I really want to build that relationship of trust. It is my job to get you healthy. I don't spend $1 unless I would spend it myself. I always tell people what I would give to my own kids, because I always wish doctors would say that. Like when I took my sons to to the doctor and I saying, well, would you give your son this? And they would never always want to answer. And I'm like, that's kind of what a parent wants to hear, right? Would you do this? So I always try to do that. Like, this is what I would do, right? So to answer some of that, like that 71-year-old was very extreme, like you're saying, 10 years, hired all the biggest doctors, got nowhere, got more sick. So what I started her with, single strain probiotic. I always start with bifido because it's not as high in histamine reactions. Lactobacillus are going to be hardest. So if you're doing a multi-strain probiotic, no, you need to watch out Lactobacillus acidophilus, bulgaricus. If you have SIBO or histamine or a mast cell, it's going to cause a problem. So I'm going to start with the bifido. If I think it's still a problem, I'm just going to keep going bifido, bifidobacterium, bifido infantis, then butyrate, which is all going to focus on the colonocytes in the colon. If I can take back that colon, if I'm seeing signs that the colon's a big problem. And then what I'm going to do is start on drainage that's light and really easy. The grounding, the sunlight, and then hot baths, no Epsom salt. Can you even handle a 103-degree bath for 15 minutes without getting heart palpitations, headaches, feeling like you're getting dizzy? Because if you can't do that, we got work to do. You need to be going on 20-minute walks every day and starting to move that lymphatic system, get natural sun. Okay, so we need to make sure you got healthy amounts of cholesterol so you can actually convert the vitamin D off the skin. I want 60% of your skin showing into the sun. If, it's winter, that's hard. I'm going to be looking at, maybe can I do a little bit of a castor oil pack? That can be harder on some of these people, but even 20 minutes or 15 minutes. Can I do a rebounder where I can just get you jumping? That's kind of like the brisk walking can be helpful with that. Then I'm going to see if there's any way I can start to reduce the issue. So I might do a single ingredient antihistamine like nettle dropper. There's a company like Vimergy has this just single ingredient nettles. And I'm like, okay, because especially if they're the COMT and they can't do quercetin, I'm just looking for what can I do? Or I'm like DAO. I'll take DAO 3 times a day before a meal, just whatever I can do to calm down the response to get things moving. Can they sweat? So I'm just looking at my avenues of how do I get the body moving? Can I start throwing in beneficial bacteria? Can I get some sort of anti-inflammatory in there? And then a lot of this also is about leaky gut. Because if you have toxins, like if you have lipopolysaccharide release into the bloodstream, your liver is going to get overwhelmed. You have metabolic endotoxemia. So I've got to shut the gate. Like imagine you're in a war, like close the door to the castle. Like now, close it. So that's where we watch what we eat. That's why we try to get strong mucosa healers. That's why Liz was talking about the immunoglobulins like Immunolin, IgGI Shield, SBI Protect from different companies. Like bind, get off the castle wall, start closing the castle wall, and start adding in your police officers to regulate that area and try to calm down cytokine reactions. Because when you do that, your drainage pathway might start working right there. I might not need lymph active right there. I might not need biofilms. I might not need a coffee enema right there. All I got to do is calm the body down, and all of a sudden the river might start flowing.
That's why I think IgG is obviously in so many conversations around histamine, because we know, why is the immune system reacting so much? Because things are getting where they should not be. We are getting things to the bloodstream. The immune system's already confused and dysregulated, and now we're just making it worse. And so I could not agree more. And I think that's such a
One
good answer.
One note, guys, that I've seen with these extreme cases is for whatever reason, I'm having a hard time with binders. Even a single ingredient like that's FDA approved, or bentonite clay, or activated charcoal, or fulvic acid. And so it's like, okay, and that's why I go back to the probiotics and I start on light amounts of soluble fiber. So what I might say is, okay, let's just start on single ingredient probiotics with the growth medium. So one cool thing to think about with natron powders is, if I take a teaspoon of natron bifidobacterium, it's like 2.5 billion CFUs. Anyone who understands colony-forming units, that's a very small amount. Try to fit that teaspoon, try to fit that into a capsule, into a 000 capsule. You couldn't. It would take 3 capsules to fit that one. but it's such a small amount of CFUs because it's not the CFUs that's really doing a lot of the job. It's the growth medium, which you're getting in the fermented foods. And if you have a single ingredient powdered probiotic, you're getting there too. So you're getting more of the growth medium that I think is getting the result more than the CFUs. And it helps them culture and get into the colon. And I'm finding it working as an enema. I
Mm.
was just talking with a doctor who is literally, she just did a colonoscopy with one of my clients, came back yesterday, no cancer, awesome, congratulations, yay for her. She had a different form of cancer, very extreme, all these different stuff, 25 years of sickness, right? So she's so happy, all this stuff. Well, she did she gave her, I can't remember the medication, but she gave her a medication to make her not poop for 2 days and then gave her a huge dose of Bifido as a suppository and then has her body hold it for like 2 days and not go to the bathroom. And I'm like, well, this is brand new. I'm just starting to check this out now, but I'm like, whoa. And she's also doing long form culture on stool tests she says she can find more easily things like too much Akkermansia or too much Fusobacterium that can be signs of colon cancer. So I think we're starting to get really revolutionary on what we're learning about the microbiome and how we see it as a problem moving forward and how we can even use that to even more suggestively tell us what kind of symptoms or diagnosis they may have. Because we know that too much Fusobacterium, too much Akkermansia for long term can put you at more risk for colorectal cancer.
Yeah. It's pretty
But
rare I've seen that on stool testing. Are you seeing it a lot? I
I,
usually see it's just not
I'm not.
detected.
I'm not. Well, yes, I'm not saying exactly, but I'm not. But one of the interesting things is she's saying that it's only it's only 1 day test and it's not being cultured long enough. I'm going, interesting. So I think there's just things we can continue to learn. I don't know. That's just a little carrot I've been starting to look at with one of my clients saying, because there's different ways we can continue to look at culturing. And it's just, something that can, to keep moving forward, that we can learn more and more about what might be happening based on the lack of microbiome or too much of certain bacteria in the body. I like gut tumor. I think it's the very best. And even the enhancements they've made lately are tremendously high. But, and so that's where,
Pathogens on gut zoomers, because we use the gut zoomer a lot, and very rarely am I finding pathogens. I'll see a lot more inflammation, and I
Mhm.
love those different markers, right? But I'm not seeing the levels of H. pylori that I've seen in others tool test. I'm not seeing parasites the way I've seen, and it's pretty rare. I go off blood work and symptoms for parasites personally. I don't use stool unless I see it and it's very specific, right? Person, we've had people do like a 3-day stool test previously because she thought that she was passing worms for 9 months and she wasn't. She was passing fiber strains and mimosa putacocete. So
Mm.
yes, and we've heard about that with the mimosa. So I agree with you. I'm seeing less infection, but I go off a lot of times. If someone's been diagnosed with any type of ulcerations, I'm going after H. pylori. All right, gastritis, ulcerations in the stomachs, in the small intestine. And I've seen people test negative for H. pylori. I run protocol for H. pylori. We retest through an MRI or CT scan, and it's completely gone. I've got before and afters of doing that and a negative test of H. pylori and just focusing on H. pylori. I think biofilms is a major problem. I think what's going on in the small intestine, no stool test is really going to be able to discern. So we got to be careful of that. With blood tests, I'm seeing a very similar thing. I'm not seeing high neutrophils very often, which is one of the ways I look for that high parasitic reaction. And so I'm kind of also, with parasites, just listening to the background, fissures, fistulas. If there's problems in the small intestine, I find parasites tend to hang out in the small intestine. So I've got ileum issues. I've got strictures, abscesses. I'm starting to look more there. Unresolved problems where they just can't get better, and I've done everything. you know and so the blood is something, you got to look at all of them. But the more you start understanding how to put something in place, then work off that, I think that's where we get the result. So now I don't have to know on day one. And when you guys work with your practitioner, day one, you don't have to know, even in day 30 or day 60, that, oh yeah, it's 100% parasites or it's 100% this, because it's usually more than one pathogen. They stack on each other, especially the longer you've been sick. And if you've been sick more than 5 years, Dr. Paul Anderson told me this, and I thought it was brilliant. He said, you've been sick for more than 5 years, you're most likely dealing with super biofilms. So I don't care, what you're talking about. You're dealing with a tremendous amount of biofilms that once you release those, there's a ton in there. And I think that's what's going on with the stool tests also, is we're getting false negatives. That's why I always like to, when someone's ready, do at least 1 gram, if not 2 to 3 grams of NaC before testing. Because if I can get, as long as they can handle something like NaC, which I find works the best, maybe a little monolaurin also as a natural biofilm. But if I can do light biofilms, 2 weeks or even 3 weeks before is more likely I'm going to see it in the urine being released, and I'm going to more likely see it in the stool. And then I might want to add in, and then NAC is great to push on phase one, phase two of the liver. So I'm more likely to also see it in a, total tox burden. So like mycotoxin, heavy metal, environmental toxin, I'm more likely to see it. So,
You also have people usually I'll have people, unless they're really sensitive, do some sauna and, like, kind of light lymphatic work before they're gonna take that urine test for
yeah.
their tox. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, if you can get them in the sauna. I mean, we deal with a lot of people who are so sick, or they're if some parents are coming to us with their kids, and it's hard to put a 12-year-old in a 175-degree sauna. Even a infrared at 140, you're kind of like, yeah, it's going to watch this. And, we're dealing with children. We're contracted with their parents, but we've worked with as young as 3 years old, so I know how extreme it can be. I mean, with the 3-year-old, it's like, oh my God, this is you. Oh my gosh, you have to just believe in the parent. Parents going to need to work with the practitioner, go for it. But and so that really brings in, we know this idea that if we have 10 people who are sick and we just say, okay, let's throw on this one probiotic, 30% are going to get better, 30% will neuter, 30% are going to get worse. Okay, 10 people are sick, let's throw on NAC or some sort of liver drainage support. 30% get better, 30% get sick, 30% get neutral. And so we have to try to find each way of doing this. We all know that we have to go after pathogens at a certain point. We need to reset the microbiome. We need to start working on the drainage pathway and help the body excrete that. And everyone's going to respond different to that. So you've got to start low and slow, get simple, have a strong relationship with what you're doing and why. Your plan has to be customized. And then we've got to start building confidence in the client's intuition to be able to talk with us as we're teaching them. So even if they say something, they don't understand what it means, I'm putting that in and going, okay, like someone had shingles 2 months ago or 4 months ago. I'm already saying we're probably going to need an antiviral just in case. I grew up in a basement, or, a lot of times I'm looking more and more at mold. Mold, I'm looking for really high levels of EMF. Could be something that I think is driving a lot of it. I'm looking for, dysregulated nervous system. I can't tell you how many people we've just got to be coming to do mental health coaching or EFT tapping or EMDR, and we've just seen them calm down. I mean, have you guys have seen clients like that where they're 90% symptom free, but their nervous system feels like they're 90% symptomatic.
Yeah,
Like
or they
their nervous system is screaming to you. They're so sick, but you look at their symptoms, you're going, you're not that sick.
yeah.
Can be
Or
seems-
I would say to people who are doing it all and nothing is working, it's because of the nervous system being so stuck in that freeze state. And so
Yes.
having them get bought into understanding how important that is. So you mentioned earlier a few things, like we can all chuckle and laugh at tree hugging or whatever, but like grounding in sunlight is so imperative. Even when we think about mitochondrial health, like if you're not even doing the basic foundations, like sure, buy all the peptides that you want. I've been saying lately, like you can't out supplement, out peptide, out hormone yourself if you aren't willing to have your ground zero taken care of. And I think for what I've discussed, at least, is more of your air quality, your water quality. Yeah, we need to have good nutrition, but most importantly, we need to have boundaries. And so boundaries with people, with time, all of those things that are, sucking the life out of you, and really focus more on finding joy. Because again, we talked off air, things around us feel like a huge fire, right?
Mhm.
Everywhere you look, there's fires, there's, controversy, there's lies, there's wars, there's uncertainty. And we know that we have to create safety in the body. And so one of the ways that we can do that, I always tell people like it's absolutely free. Go outside, take your phone with you so that if something happens, you have it. But like, don't listen to anything. Just go in nature and just observe and just walk and just breathe. And you're probably going to get a lot more out of that than you will spending, I don't know how much money on whatever device that people are now asking all the time. Like, should I buy this $3,000 chair, this mat, this pulsetto, whatever it might be? And I think those things have a time and a place and they can be valuable, but if you aren't doing the ground zero, you're just going to waste a lot of money. So I don't know if you would agree with that, but I think that so often than not, it comes back to the inherent nature that God created for us to heal. We have what we need within us to heal, but we also have to get bought into that with the healing mindset. And we have to understand, like you said before, healing is not linear. I always say flares are not failures. And it's really continuing to shift from the negative, those automatic negative thoughts that we have, and even some of this health PS or PTSD that we might have, into a belief that we can heal. We are going to have days that are going to be harder than others, but we're also going to see more good days and we have to embrace that. Those are signs that things are working. And just for some individuals who've been chronically sick, it might take longer. So
Mhm.
I would just wanna reiterate that because everything we've talked about in this podcast so far, and all of us work with some of the sickest of the sick, chronic
Mhm.
illness cases. We're talking about ground zero foundations, things that God has designed for us in nature, utilizing minimal supplements to start, and
Mhm.
then going deep and getting and fine tuning. Because that's the craft, right? It's an art and a science. And that's why people hire experts like us. And our team is fantastic. Your team is fantastic. They're still not the brain or the experience that Dane has, Liz has, or Becca has. Like that's just the reality.
It
Like
does
we
take
all
time,
work with everybody, but at the same time, you have to understand we're at that level now where we've
Yeah.
built it, we're crafting them. But yeah, I would just love your thoughts on that too, because I know you're a believer and you've walked this healing journey yourself and been in the trenches.
Yeah, I was in a wheelchair at 122 pounds and nothing helped, and I tried all the diets, and I spent, thousands and thousands of dollars with, with different doctors and different medications and different plans, and I flew all around the country, and I didn't get better. I didn't get better until I took full responsibility, which I think is something you're talking about, that it does take time. There's no one in the world. You could pay the best doctor in the world all this money, and believe me, I've seen $50,000 NK cell therapy. I've been around and done mesenchymal stem cell therapy at $25,000 a pop, where the rich could really spend, and it's still not a magic solution. And you still have to put that work in. There is no perfect way to do this. The foundations of what you're talking about, nervous system regulation, the most valuable one I've seen so far is EFT tapping. Now, I love all of them, but the biggest bang for the buck I've seen is where you're sitting down, you're doing affirmations, you're doing breath, and you're tapping on your meridians, and you're starting to let go of the trauma. Your nervous system can calm down. Sunlight, earthing, you know, hugging a tree, get whatever, get around nature. I agree. It calms the body. You can get present again, get away from all the EMF and all the lights all the time. And number three is focus on what you're not doing in the beginning. Get in control. Because when you partner with Liz or you partner with her company or any practitioner that you feel is an integrity for you, you have a coach who's there to help you, but you are still the answer. You are still the answer because no one's going to have the intuition that you have and be able to get up and take action and learn and make decisions. And a lot of times what happens is we try so hard, but then you go off and you do 10 other things in that week because you get in your head and you don't listen to the directions and you come back and you try 20 things in 7 days, and it's like, calm it down, bring it in, and let's just do one step at a time. There is no such thing as a magic pill. We call it MPS. It's another disease, magic protocol syndrome. And a lot of people are suffering from it. And we have to build it like a chess match. Start with foundational things that are low risk, high reward, and usually very cost effective. We talked about that a lot today. The Epsom salt bath, the grounding, the EFT, single strain products, single ingredients. If something is scaring you and you are okay going slower, let your person know, let your coach, let your practitioner know, I'm okay if this takes a little bit more time because I want to grow safe. And sometimes it's the tortoise and the hare. I like to go slow to go fast. And if I get rid of 35, 40% of these symptoms in the next 90 days, is that not a win?
I
Make
think
that okay with me. Give me that okay as your coach. I'm going to go for 100, but I'm not going to do it if I have to go 120 miles an hour and put us at risk. Are we in agreement? Now, if you're saying no, I've met clients who are like, give me everything right now. I don't care. And I'm like, okay, sixth gear, here we come. And I warn them like 4 times and I try to do it as safely as possible. But let me know how fast, how safe. Because the more you tell me, the more I can do what you need. And now I'm in integrity with you, which is what I want, what Liz wants, what everyone wants. We want to serve you to help you get the results, but we have to put those expectations out there. Now, you might get amazing results with just a binder, starting on the probiotics, refine your nutrition plan, work on the nervous system, go to bed at the right time, get rid of the alcohol, get rid of the glyphosate, get rid of the gluten, get rid of the snacks, and boom, you're going, Dane, I'm 90% symptom free. And hallelujah. And we see it. I know you guys see it. It will happen. It can happen. It will happen. But let yourself go at your own pace. Start with what you can keep up and then add the advanced stuff. So if something's scaring you or it's overwhelming you, just wait a few more weeks. Get the reps in with what you already tried. And the fear is, I'm stuck. I'm just doing the same thing over and over again and it's not working. So calm that down for a second and say, okay, I'm not doing the same thing over and over again because now I've been able, and this is where I love the scaling the same protocol. So if you're sitting here and I say, let's not add in a new product, let's not add a new protocol. Let's take the probiotics, let's increase them by 20%. Let's maybe look at trying a little bit of sauerkraut if you're ready for that with your meat-based meals. Let's look at doing more breath work because we want to get your body super saturated with oxygen. So I really want to do some deep breathing to get the oxygen in the body. Let's make sure we're going to bed at 9 o'clock, doing a little bit of meditation. Let's go ahead and see if we can go from 1 cap to 3 caps a day of a curcumin. And I want a single ingredient curcumin that's going to stay in the gut and get to that colon or that ileum. That's the problem. Let's do just 20 minutes a day in that meditation of EFT tapping, going over that trauma, and then journal. Just journal for 10 minutes a day. What do you think's happening? What'd you learn? Watch the trainings in the program. Come back to me. So we didn't really change that much. We just scaled what we already had, gave you some experiences, giving you things that you could try that didn't cost $1, just cost a little bit of time, which is usually what we want to trade anyways, right? A little bit more time, be resourceful, and then we can continue to stack on that. So, make sure, I think a big mistake I see, guys, is that practitioners are always telling clients what to do and almost just going at them instead of
with them.
yeah, with them, and just, speak up, guys. Speak. We need to hear your thoughts. We need to hear what didn't work with the other practitioner. We need to hear, if you're brand new, what you're scared of. We need to hear what intuitively you want to eat and how your life is. And don't be scared to tell me, Dane, I drink. I'm still drinking alcohol. Like, don't lie. Tell me. And I'm gonna have to know. And do I have to look here? And I'm not going to just go hard at you and say, get rid of the alcohol. You have to get rid of it unless it's really something that's going to put you in an ER room. And I'm going to let you know how serious it is. I don't want you to do that, but I want an honest relationship of where you're at, because doing what Liz does, what we all do, is hard. It's hard to change your life. And it's a little bit of a divorce of Western world. And so start with the foundation. Now we can go into advanced. We spent a lot of time today talking about advanced strategies. But if you don't have that foundation where you can eat very specific, you can go to bed at the same time, you can work on your nervous system, you know that these certain things are already doing well with you. I can eat this way, I can take certain beneficial bacteria, I can do fermented foods, I can do certain drainage pathway support, I'm good, but I've still got these symptoms. I've got bloating, cramping, pain, skin reactions, headaches, arthritic pains. Okay, start there. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and start slowly adding on top of it to get the result. And if you get 5% more, I bet you can get 10. If you can get 10, you can get 20. And how much of what you're already doing, you can just increase the effort of that to get another 10, 20% better. And that's not about adding new variables. Variables is where the risk is. Scale what's already working.
And just to wrap this up, one thing we're saying indirectly here throughout the entire podcast is consistency, because I hear from people so often that I tried this, I tried that. Well, how long did you try it for?
Yeah.
What else did you do in addition to that, right? So you have mentioned several times here probiotics. Well, what about prebiotics? What about your postbiotics, right? What about all of these things that you can be doing with your nutrition and creating diet diversity outside of just popping a pill? Because again, so many people just want that quick fix. Oh, I'm going to take this pill. And then we've done several podcasts. If you guys are listening to this and you're like confused, right? He's mentioned a few single strain products here. I love that. We've also talked about this ad nauseum around probiotics. They're strain specific, right? And so what are the right things that you might need? It depends upon also what you're struggling with. Bacillus is, or bifidobacterium, excuse me, is great. There's other ones that can survive the stomach acid as well, in terms of bacillus or other things. And if it is, something that we can see a stool test, great. If not, I've got a whole guide that talks about different things. Like, are we going to go after vaginal bacteria? The vaginal flora is a little bit different. So we're going to use a different strain there. So just understanding that when you're going through a healing process, even if you sign up for a 6-month program, I believe your guys is about 4 or 6 months, right? Whatever time frame these programs are that you are working with a practitioner, things don't end there. You have this thing called life extends until the time that you on, and what you're doing to support your body should be continued, and it should continue to evolve. It should continue to improve and get better and better. As the research is better and better, we know how to do better, right? And I just wanted to say the consistency piece, because I think so many people give up too quickly. And like you said, I love it. I wrote it down. We're going to steal this. I'm going to tag you on Instagram later. What did you say? You said magic protocol syndrome, MPS.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're going
We
to,
diagnose it all the time. Yeah.
my God, we're gonna put this in our Slack channel later because it is so true. Like we have people who are like, I want to change practitioners. And it's like, wait a second. What is the need for that? Because you have not put into action the protocol that you currently have, and you're actually not compliant yet. So we don't need to make any other changes until we can see compliance, right? Unless it's like a real personality issue, right? We're happy to do that. But
Yeah.
we have to be consistent, we have to be compliant. And you said it nail on the head time and time through this, communicate. Everything, any fires we have with clients, anything that is not going well, it all comes down to broken communication and either not asking questions, not reaching out, not sharing. So withholding information. I'm not saying that it's lying, but it's a form, right? We need to know those things because we are factoring in so much when we're building protocols and we're thinking about where we're going next in this roadmap for your healing. And at the same time, please don't start throwing in a bunch of other things that you saw on Instagram because we need to know that as
Yeah.
well. So it's like all the shiny object syndrome that we just have to come back to the basics, get consistent. If you are chronically sick, I like to say it's probably going to take you about half the time to heal. So if you've waited a year, plan for 6 months of going through a healing process. It might be longer than that, it might be shorter than that, but to set an expectation, and I'd love to wrap up and hear your thoughts on that too. Some people think that it's all going to be fixed in 4 to 6 months and then they're good. They don't have to do anything else, they're just fixed. And that's
Yeah.
definitely not how it works.
Yeah, you said a lot of brilliant things there, and we do a lot of the same things. I really respect what you guys do and how you're supporting people because this is hard and it takes a lot of hard work to do it. Expectations is let me I'll answer it with this. You guys have had health issues of your own. When you learn to do protocols, do you still live in a certain way that is healing, that is detoxifying, that is nourishing to your body? Yeah, because you rebuilt your norm. You have a new norm. You're not trying to just hack your health. You're trying to rebuild a reality of what is normal. And yes, you're not going to do a parasite cleanse forever. You're on and off certain things. I'm on a heavy metal detox cleanse. I'm doing certain protocols that are on and off, but those are now in your arsenal and you can keep using them. You want to reinvent the normal of life and say, this is how I'm balanced. I don't drink alcohol anymore because I just found eventually I was more balanced. I could have dry farms wine. I could have gluten free. I could have, low sugar tequila in the past. And I got to a point where I just felt more spiritually better that this is my new reality. I want to be like this, especially having too many kids and joking on that. And so I would say the number one reason I'd ask everyone listening, if you felt trustworthy and connected to the team you were working with, and you weren't walking on water within 4 to 6 months, would that be okay? And would it be worth continuing to move forward? So really just define what does success look like? And when I was chronically sick, and I was sick for a long, long time, if someone had to show me even 50, 30% symptom relief in 4 months, I would have been like, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative. I've learned so much. I want to keep going. And that's what I would do with myself. And the reason is because I'm learning something I can use for the rest of my life. Realize that the symptom relief is the second benefit. It's not the number one most important benefit. The number one most important benefit you're learning is how to take care of yourself. And that has a sub benefit of how to take care of those you love. Because if you can learn to live without these toxic foods and elements, if you can learn to do a detox, if you can learn how binders work, if you can learn pulsing and titration, you can start to help others around and you can help yourself in 10 years from now. This is the most valuable thing you're going to learn. So when you come in, realize you want to get self-empowered. You want to get trained, not just take a pill, as Liz was saying. And so I think you're right. And every case is different. And we want to be trusting in that. We want to communicate that where we are. And I'm not going to tell you it's going to take a year because I might get massive results for you in 2 months. I've done it 100 times. We're like Barry Bonds. Don't throw it down the middle. Okay. We can hit it out the park, but we can't guarantee it because that's life. And it's hard to do this. We're talking about chronic disease. The doctor tells you, take these medications for the rest of your life. There's nothing you can do. And you knock on our door and we're saying, no, there is something you can do, but it's not linear. It's hard. And where are you at? Are you being integral with that? And the number thing you want from that practitioner you're working with is you want good communication. You want to be heard. You want to feel like you're being taken care of. So if we don't get perfect results in the beginning, we're going, okay, how can we go above and beyond? Are you being integral? Are we being integral? Are we doing things right? Are we making smart decisions? And usually 9 times out of 10, Even if it's not going perfect the way we want it, we've got a really, really healthy relationship that we can grow on. And we're going to continue to do what we can in our part. And I know that you're going to do what you can in your part, because we as a team are going after this thing that the doctors say is impossible. So we are on the same team. And I know Liz is on your team. And you guys, just remember that healing is possible. It's not linear. It has to be a customized plan. Start with the foundation and then put it in perspective. What's it worth to even see 20, 30% symptom relief? And what have you learned? Why has something worked or why hasn't something worked? And you'll take that for the rest of your life.
I think that's a perfect way to end on it. So, thank you so much for all of the insight and the conversation. And I think it's very much so needs to be heard by a lot of our clients who listen, a lot of potential clients for other practitioners or our practice or your practice. Like, we need to hear this as even our own selves, because when you're in that journey, on that constant journey, you can grow discontent with things, and you can be very emotional in those moments. And I think it's also why it's so important to work with someone, because they help keep you grounded, they help keep you in reality, and they help you essentially save you from yourself sometimes, because we are emotional humans. That is how we are built. That is how we will always be. But it can be very easy to get lost in the sauce with all of that, and in your day to day. So, thank you so much for this, and let people know where they can follow you, where they can find you, so that they can get more of you.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Thanks for having me again. I hope we learned some more stuff. We went over some more advanced strategies today. Crohn's Colitis Lifestyle, you can find us all over the internet if you need it. We work specifically with people with inflammatory bowel disease. And yeah, we're here to serve and support. You can find us on Instagram at Crohn's Colitis _ lifestyle, or me, Dane Johnson. And just, do what's best for you. Find a place of integrity and a place that you really feel like you can heal. And it's possible.